Today, my goal is to change the rear cog. This is the cog that came stock with the Fuji. I'm pretty sure it's a 16 tooth, as where this I think I went and got an 18. When I first got the bike, the stock gear was too big, but now that I've been riding this a few months, I'm feeling good about putting the bigger gear back on. So first thing I like to do is loosen the lock ring. It's an opposite thread on a fixed gear bike, so it's not right tight, it's actually right loose. There it goes. And sometimes you're able to actually use the chain and the crankset to loosen the cog by pedaling backwards. And if I can't do that, then I'll take the wheel off and I will go from there. So I like to back my wheel against a wall or something, and I'm going to stomp on the pedal backwards a few times. Sometimes the cog just releases because you're pedaling backwards and it's going the opposite thread. And sometimes it doesn't and I have to take it off. There it goes. That's a trick you learn from working in bike shops when you want to do things quick. Alright, now I'll pop the wheel off and swap the cog. This does have a flip-flap hub, but the tires are directional. Not that that really makes a huge difference, but I'd rather take it off and have the cog I want on the proper side. These are the Wabi Cycle wheels with the 5mm Allens. Break out my little torque wrench here, because when I put them back on, I like to torque them to a certain spec. I'll just hang the chain over the edge like that. If you're careful, it won't scratch anything. And there you go. Okay, I will unspin all the cogs and lock rings. The lock ring's an opposite thread, so right is loose. Cog is standard, right tight, left loose. And I'll just wipe this down a bit. Definitely not looking for perfection. What I want to do is I'm just going to stick a small drop of Loctite. This isn't really needed. The Loctite, because you have the lock ring and then the force of you pedaling, it's just something I like to do. I don't want an overabundance of it, but a little extra security is going to be good. I like to do all the final tightening on the bike. This way I can use the chain, I can stand on it, and I can really lock this cog in before I lock the lock ring. So there we go. There it goes. And like I said, I'm going to leave it all a little loose and get it back on the bike. All right, we'll put the wheel back on. Go. This is a bigger cog, so I was able to do it. I thought I might have to push it in more. Actually, it's a smaller cog. That's right. I'm going to just get this hand set. I won't touch the tensioners. Just get it centered, and I'll lock the wheel in. And then I'll put the wheel on the ground and I'll stomp on it and really twist this cog tight before I touch the lock ring. You don't need to use a torque wrench putting on these wobbly wheels, but since it's an Allen head, I feel better about getting them even versus an axle nut, which you could just crank on. I'm not super worried about getting it perfectly centered at this point because I'm still tightening everything up. All right, let's get it on the ground. All right, so now I'm basically just going to stand on my cranks and tighten the cog, because right now it's loose. But if I stand on it, I put my wheel up against the wall. That way I can really just stand on it. And there you go. I know it ain't going any further than that. All right, now I'll work on tensioning and chain tensioners here, of course. Most of it I'm going to just pull back with my hands, but first thing I want to do is pull the chain off so I can get a good solid purchase with my lock ring wrench. Hook wrench? Lock ring wrench? I'm sure there's a proper name for it, but I'm going to call it a lock ring wrench. Hook spanner, there you go. I'm just going to do this, create an opening down here. This is an opposite thread. So here is your hook spanner. There's a small one and a large one. On this one it uses the large one. And you want to back it up against there. If you have the chain on, what happens is the if this is the cog, you end up pulling, you don't get a full purchase, you only get like a quarter purchase. So taking the chain off just makes it way more solid, and you can really get it up nice and flush. And I'll use the leverage of the wheel by holding my hand on it and get it tight. So I got my camera adjusted. And let's start this. I'm just going to dial these in until it stops, and I basically just walk my wheel back till I get the tightness that I want. So now the stops are locked into my axle right where it is. So like you can see right here, trying to find the tightest and loosest spots. So that seems to be a tight spot. What I'll do is tighten it up there by pushing this side out, and then sliding the stop in. Now I have to recenter by loosening this and centering the wheel, which I can use my hand for, and set my micro adjuster. Look down the back, make sure everything is centered up top and on the bottom. Back this off just a hair. And now I'm going to check the tightness. Like right now, it's really tight right here. There you go, there's a loose spot. Loose, tightening right back up as it goes around, because not all chain rings are perfectly round. I don't like to have it super tight, or the drivetrain doesn't. Yeah, or the drivetrain just doesn't run smooth. All right, I got it where I like it. So now I just need to torque everything up. I got this right where I want it. And I have my torque wrench set to 15 if anybody cares. That's 15 Newton meters, by the way. And now I backed it off. I backed the axle nut off a little bit just so I could play with the centering here. I guess now's the time to be picky. There you go. Make sure both of these are touching the axle. These don't have a lock nut on it. The Fuji didn't come. I keep telling myself I'm going to go get a little jam nut because these will back off on me. But even when they back off, it doesn't go out of adjustment. The torque that I've been using, these have not come out of adjustment. And I will go find some chain lube the chain. It should shut it up a bit. I'm just going to drip a little on each link and then I will wipe it off. This is Finish Line Cross Country Lube. It's actually quite thick, so you really kind of gotta, if anything, I probably put it on too thick. But it's already a little bit quieter. It's a long-lasting chain lube. That's why I use it. It's really water repellent. But it's thick and gooey, and if you don't wipe it off really good, it'll track sand and dirt, and there's a lot of dirt roads that I ride on up here. That's one thing you can say about Vermont. No shortage of dirt roads. There you go. That takes care of that. Now I went from a 48-18, which was about a 2.5 to 1 gear ratio, which means 1 revolution of the crank is 2.5 revolutions of the wheel. And it's a fairly low gear, but my strength wasn't up. My strength wasn't up at the time. What I ended up putting on now today is a 16. That puts me up to about a 2.9 to 1, and much bigger gear, much faster. I won't have to spin my legs as fast to get the speeds that I was getting on the other cog, and it should be a lot of fun. As far as skid patches, it's not anything that I really truly worry about much because I tend to use inexpensive tires. but for the people that want to know, I actually wrote it down. What I had on there was the 4618, and I ended up with 9 skid patches. That's one side of the crank, so you double that and be like 18 skid patches if you can lock them up with both legs. And I'm only losing 1 skid patch going with the 16. I've run gearing on my other fixed gears that have only had like 3 skid patches, and yeah, I don't worry too much. I don't do a lot of skidding. I do a lot of little skip stops and no prolonged skids because I'm old. It's way easier to skid the tire on the gravel.